Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you're joining us from. My name is Jan Willem, and I'd like to welcome you to this webinar, Richer Insights from Open-Ended and Multimedia Feedback, with Miguel Ramos from Confirmit. A couple of points before we begin. This webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be made available to you after the webinar. You can ask a question by sending the question through the question widget. Our webinar platform has a few functions which I will quickly walk you through. The red number 1 shows where you can send in your questions. Number 2 is where you can see the slides. And number 3 are a group of widgets. These widgets offer you the chance to interact with your fellow webinar attendees through the group chat or to download the slides and additional information on the webinar in the resources widget. Just click on the icons and see what happens. The platform is designed for you to get everything you can out of our time together, so experiment and have fun. And without any further ado, let me introduce you to Miguel Ramos. Miguel is subject matter expert at Confirmit, where he leads mobile practice in the EMEA and Asia Pacific regions, develop mobile solutions for market research and voice of consumers. And over to you now, Miguel.
Thank you, Jan. And good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. I'm a technologist with more than 20 years experience in technology and strategy. And I've been contributing to the market research industry for more than 6 years now, with the whole objective of bringing and sharing innovations to the market research industry. So today's presentation is about richer insights from open-ended and multimedia feedback. This presentation is divided into three parts. The first part, I will be talking about open-ended questions because they're an exceptional source of feedback and context. Then I will quickly talk about audio and video feedback as a way to complement open-ended feedback. So everything is about the participants providing their own thoughts, and I will finish with some recommendations. So let's start. Open survey questions are questions that do not include a set of response options. These questions require participants to formulate a response in their own words and to express it in writing. Participants are really not steered into a particular direction with a predefined response, categories, or options. And some research shows that all respondents are capable of answering this question type, and that some studies have also shown that dissatisfied participants are more likely to answer than satisfied participants. Dissatisfied participants give longer answers because they're often more interested in expressing their dissatisfactions than the satisfied participants. Let's look at it from the market researcher perspective. From a market researcher, you've got an infinite number of responses. You're not placing any limits on the response that the participant can provide. They can tell you anything they feel that is relevant, and there is that extra detail that can help you clarify and categorize the response, and also the length of the responses and the details can help you discover something quite unique and unexpected. And from the participant's perspective, when they face with an open-ended question, they can feel intimidated because of that large blank space into which they need to insert their answers. But if you give them room, they can express themselves freely, and that can empower them and surprise you. And these type of responses can also encourage creative answers and self-expressions. The challenges with open-ended feedback, open-ended questions, is that the questions need to be coded. you always need a minimum of number of characters in order to get some useful insights. And when participants are using mobile devices, this can be challenging. So what I'm going to do now is to talk about the dynamic open-ended question type. If you're not using it, this is a question type that we are recommending to our in Confirmit. We strongly recommending it to all our users. Why? Because all the participants, they are used to having dialogues with brands. They are having conversations through mobile using messaging platforms, or they're also using live chats on websites. But the same experience can be given to survey participants through the dynamic open-ended question type. You can set a minimum and a maximum number of characters, which is what would be expected in normal open-ended question type. But the difference is that you can contain all those encouraging messages. Those are the messages that, as the participants enter their feedback, the personalization encourage them to provide more insights. But the value of this open-ended question type, the dynamic open-ended question type, is the fact that the question is actually listening to the participant for all those specific categories or words. In this case, you can see it's comfortable. Imagine that the participant is answering a survey about trainers, and then the participant starts typing, the trainers are very comfortable. Imagine that you've done a previous qual group where you have identified all those categories, those keywords, all those that they really need some additional insights. We really want to do some additional research. If one of the category is comfortable, then the question will prompt the respondent, the participant, to enter more feedback about the trainers being comfortable. You can customize all personalized message for each category. And this is what's the differentiator. Then the participant can provide additional insights, and you can have, say for example, if you had two categories, you can have two personalized messages for both categories. But you can do categories and some subcategories. And this means that if the category is present and the subcategory is present as well, then the message is personalized even further. For example, one of the categories is how comfortable are my trainers. And they're comfortable because they fit me well. So if they fit me well, that would be the subcategory. Then the personalized message will appear, and you can find out more information about why the categories fit you well. One very popular example would be category staff, and then subcategory friendly or unfriendly. If the staff is friendly, category staff, subcategory friendly, then you really want to find out why is the staff friendly, or why are you finding the staff unfriendly, or why are you finding the brand whatever. So that's the this is what I wanted to show everyone, that with dynamic open-ended feedback, we're moving from a monologue to a dialogue, because you are able to have your qual group identify all those categories where you want to find out information from, and prompt the respondent when that category or combination of category and subcategory appears. We're going to have some time at the end for some questions. So I'm going to move into the audio and video feedback. And for audio and video, the reason why I chose this is to remind everyone that the respondents are completing feedback using mobile devices, and mobile devices have got multimedia capabilities. And with that multimedia capabilities, this means that you can include audio and video as a way to collect that open-ended feedback. But then, before you do that, you have to always consider a responsive design for your survey. Responsive surveys are designed and developed to respond to the participant's behavior based on the screen size, the device, and the orientation. This means that the survey automatically adapts the layout to the viewing device. This is here's an example of a responsive survey, and the concept to remember is that these type of surveys are mobile first. You do no longer have to create a survey for a desktop or a survey for mobile devices. You're designing it from a mobile perspective, and as soon as the survey becomes bigger, then all the questions will adapt automatically, and they will be enhanced based on the browser and the device. So consider responsive surveys, and when you're doing open text questions, make sure you explore this approach where you give them options to your respondents. And this means that you can have an open text question, and you can also have an option for the respondent to complete the feedback using maybe an audio or a video. We've seen this approach with our customers. If you're doing this, always consider to track and measure what's the preferred question type. Are your respondents completing the open text, which is the normal typing, or do they prefer to do audio? Do they prefer to do video? Store that information together with the device that they're using to provide the feedback. The device type, the screen size, the operating system, the browser. These are very, very important pieces of information because we're moving into the world of collecting contextual information. Example and use cases where we've seen audio and video questions being used together with open text in mystery shopping, innovation studies, media testing, retail audits, diaries and ethnographies, which is one of the most popular. And with video questions, and this is what's coming up, and this is what we're seeing with the technology, you can get the complete picture through the addition of facial and tonal analysis. Facial recognition, it's similar to facial recognition. It identifies the combination of movements and the key aspects that really equates to an emotion. And tonal analysis looks at identify how we're saying it. So this is what's really coming with the audio and video questions. So don't look at it from the respondent is just completing an audio feedback or a video feedback. There are ways to analyze this feedback even further. This is a short webinar, so I'm going to close the webinar with some recommendations. The whole objective of this webinar is to show that you can collect rich and insights with open-ended questions. If you explore using dynamic open-ended questions, you've got unlimited number of prompted instructions that you can provide to your participants to uncover all those additional insights. If you a high percentage of your respondents will be using mobile devices, that means that responsive design layouts are the way forward, and as well as collecting and storing the device information. And if you want to complement open-ended questions, you can complement it with video and audio questions in a way that you provide them with an option, so they can just either complete and type in the text, or provide the audio, or record a video. In summary, we're having a shift from questions to capturing behavior, because if you look at it, I have been recommending to storing all this additional contextual information, because the technology can really help you to capture all that contextual information, all the open-ended feedback from the respondents, and you can analyze it and extract all that behavioral and sentiment information. And the whole aim is to transform that data, which is coming from the participant, the respondent, into information that drives, that are analyzed and converted into insights that when you deliver to your customers, they can drive actions into the brands or the organizations where they're using all those insights. And now we've got to the end of the presentation. So back to you, Jan Willem.
Thank you. We indeed have now some time for questions. So if there's anything you want to ask, please send it in through the Q&A widget. And to begin, we have a question: how many categories can I configure in the dynamic open questions? Are there any limits?
You can configure an unlimited number of categories. Normally, these type of questions are used where you have done a previous study and you have done a qual study and you have a number of categories. Or if you've been doing research for a specific brand or a segment or a sector and you're aware of all the categories, you can set them up in the system. But the answer is unlimited, as many as you want to include.
Perfect. That sounds very promising. Another question. And again, if you have anything, please send them in through their widget. Here we have a question: where can I find more information about responsive survey templates?
Responsive survey, at Confirmit, you can, if you're a Confirmit user, you could use responsive survey templates. So that's I work for Confirmit, so that would be what I can recommend. But if there are a lot of online resources that explain the responsive surveys, and I would, if you send me an email, I'm more than happy to provide you with some more assets that you can use.
Super. We got a question from Tom Kentel, who's asking, what if a participant doesn't reply in a nicely written way? Does the software still pick up what they meant?
Does the software? I haven't. So the answer would be yes. At Confirmit, we normally recommend to use text analytics that it's able to pick up that those words, and when you're running through the analysis, all that can be extracted. So that would be one approach. And as many categories as you have configured, then the system would pick it up. So you've got the collection of doing the data collection. The system will pick up what you have configured, and doing the text analytics analysis, you've got unlimited ways of approaching that feedback.
Super. Then we have a question from Alina, who was asking, do you have a recommendation on the position of the audio-video open ends in the survey?
That's a very good question. I have read some research that where they're recommending to place them towards the beginning of the survey before the participants get tired, and also the number of open-ended. It's very. It's also a point to take into account. I think on on one of the assets that it's in on the platform, there is a white paper on survey fatigue, and it mentions all this information. So I would probably refer you to the survey fatigue white paper.
That's very helpful, I think. We have one more question from Anna, who is asking, using the dynamic open-end, wouldn't it cause any sort of indirect biases by prompting their spontaneous answers?
That's a very good question. Normally what we recommend is to provide these type of questions is used with text analytics, and for text analytics you have to provide neutral sentiment questions. So these are questions or prompts that are sentiment neutral. So that would be something to consider when creating the prompts. But yes, it's something that needs to be looked at. But the recommendation would be to explore the sentiment neutral prompts together with the questions. If you are interested, I think we have some more information about that. If you send an email, we could point you in the right direction.
Okay, and then I think the last question for today is coming from Kruti, who is asking, how do we analyze video surveys?
Video survey can be analyzed through the platform normally. Videos are you can do a transcript of the audio into text, and then the text can be run through text analytics. And for the video, you can have the facial recognition analysis and the tonal analysis that I touch very quickly. But that would be the way the automatic analysis of the system would work.
And we actually got a question just coming in from Ahmed, who was asking, is dynamic open-ended question recommended only for predefined categories, or it still can be done without predefined categories? And how do you do that?
It can be used with any. It can be used without any categories. And the whole objective of the prompted question is to create some specific prompts for specific categories that you really know that they're going to come up. You have a hypothesis, and you want to collect those additional insights. If you want to use it without categories, you can use it and then only have maybe the encouraging messages, which is encouraging to enter a number of characters. We have some customers that have done that, so it's only used for the number of characters. But once you start collecting data, and especially for tracking studies, maybe you have some categories where you want to collect all those additional insights.
Okay, super. And thanks a lot for presenting today. And of course, thanks a lot for our attendees for participating in this webinar. And we hope you have enjoyed our time with us.
Thank you.
At SMR, we have a couple of events around the globe, which I will now quickly draw your attention to. In April, we'll be going to Buenos Aires for our annual LATAM conference. And from 13 till 15 May, we are in Bangkok for our APEC conference, which is immediately followed by one of our boot camps, Semiotics, which takes place on 16 and 17 May. For a full overview of our SMR events, please visit the website smr.org/events. If you are interested in learning more about SMR, just contact us on this email address. And we look forward to seeing you again in a future webinar.